This morning it's a privilege to lead you in the reading of God's holy word. Would you turn to John? It's the fourth book in the New Testament there. It's on page 1055, if you'd like to follow along in your pew Bible. John chapter 6. And we're going to be reading from verse 1 through 15. It begins with a phrase that says, "sometimes after this." And you'd have to go back to chapter 5 to find out what that was. But let me just give you a couple of sentences. Jesus healed on the Sabbath day, and that's recorded in John chapter 5. And the Jewish leaders, they began to persecute him and question his authority. I think they were asking, who is this man? And of course, John's perspective is that he is the Son of God. But so we've come to chapter 6, page 1055, and we read this. "Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. And the Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, 'Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?' And he asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. 'Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?' Jesus said, 'Have the people sit down.' There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, and about 5,000 of them. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. And he did the same with the fish. And when they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, 'Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted.' So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. And after the people saw this miraculous sign that Jesus did, they began to say, 'Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world.' Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to the mountain by himself." So I ask you this morning, who is this Jesus to you? Can you really believe what he did and what he said?